In today's video, we'll be setting up color styles for design system, and we'll be doing it in Figma. So fortunately, there are already more or less established standards and best practices, so we don't have to come up with anything new and can just follow what's already out there. Before we do anything in Figma, let's go over some of those best practices. The first one is keeping your names as simple as possible, at least when you are just starting out. So if you have a blue color, just call it blue and maybe don't do anything fancy like ocean, or even something that can have like a cultural or background context. For example, your company name blue. You want anyone to be able to understand what that color is without needing to Google anything or get additional context. Second, when you initially set up your color system, you want to start out with 7 to 9 shades for any single color. You'll want to have a good range of choices for things like backgrounds, and you want to have a good range of choices for things like text color, so very light ones and very dark ones. Third, you should have a system for naming your colors and their corresponding shades. So a popular system, for example, is having the color name, in this case blue, followed by a value like 100, 200, 300, and usually the lighter the shade is, the lower the value, so like blue 100. And then the darker the shade is, the higher the value, so like blue 900. This system is much more flexible and scalable as opposed to adding one-off names like royal, or adding prefixes like new dark blue, because prefix like new quickly becomes outdated once you add on yet another shade, and then it's very difficult to update all those names. And the last one that I want to cover here is keeping your values independent from any of the color properties. So this example here is showing that the value is dependent on the lightness of the color, and it doesn't have to be lightness, it could be driven by hue or saturation, or could be anything else really. But the main point is to keep them independent. The reason for that is that if you ever wanted to update your blue 200, you don't need to worry about updating the value and then values being mismatched, and once again updating the names. It also allows you to keep your values simple, like blue 500 instead of blue 520. It's much easier to remember. And lastly, it allows anyone to understand your system, even if they don't have any knowledge of color properties. This was a very quick overview of best practices when it comes to naming colors for a design system, but I highly recommend you check out this two resources, an article and a book, and I will add links to them in the description. So the first one is an article by Adobe about naming colors in design systems. It just goes into much more depth into everything that I just mentioned here, and this second one is a book, and it has a whole chapter devoted on working with color. And actually some of the things that I'll be referencing on as we go on with this tutorial, they do come from this book, so please check it out. Now we can move on to Figma to start creating our color system. First, I'm going to show you 2 ways how you can create a color style in Figma. The first one is relatively new. I think they just released it. So you're going to go over to your right section here and find this subsection called local styles. And if you click this plus, you'll have a menu, and you'll select the color. And then from here, you can play around, find whichever color you want. Let's say we want this blue. You can call it blue. Add a description, what it's for, maybe, I don't know, info message, or you can definitely get more specific. And then you create style. So it's going to show up right here. And now if, let's say I want to create a couple shapes, I can go ahead, hover over this fill section here, click on this 4 dots, and I will have my color right here. So that's the first way. The second way is, let's say I created a shape and then I was just playing around with some colors and I made one that I really liked. So what you can do now is use a shortcut to create a color style, and this was actually the original way how you created a color style in Figma. So what I'm going to do is click on these 4 dots and then click this plus over here, and then maybe this one I will just call navy. Either of these 2 ways works perfectly when you just want to create one color style, but since we're creating a whole palette, we will want to use a plugin to make it much faster for us. And speaking of which colors we want to create, we're going to start with just a few, but they're essential. So the first one, we'll want to have a color for our brand or our primary color. In this case, it's going to be this purple one. Then we'll want to have a good amount of grays mainly for just a regular text. Then we also want to have 4 colors that we'll use as messaging and 4 different states. So we'll want reds for errors or negative state, we'll want oranges for warnings or notices, we'll want greens to signify a success or a positive state, and then we'll want some blues for more neutral like info messaging. Let's return to our Figma file, and I'm actually going to delete this stuff, and I'm going to delete our styles as well. And I'll begin by creating 9 circles, which I'll use as a template for creating the color scales. So I can just copy and paste this. And then I'm just pretty much quickly like putting them into auto layout, grouping, and then ungrouping just so that they're like nice and neat and evenly spaced out. So this is going to be my template. And just so that I don't have to recreate this again, I'm going to copy and paste this. And so now I have 9 circles, so it's going to each represent a shade. And we'll start with our primary, with our brand color. And this one is going to be purple, as we saw before. So first I'm going to, so let's say I don't have this color yet, so it's up to me to figure out what I want it to be. So I will start in the center, and I'm just going to play around with the color until I find the one that I like. Let's say it's this one. And what can I do from here is first, this is going to be our middle one, so I'll call it 500. So one thing, I'm just gonna group this, call it template. Then I'll want to do my lightest shade and my darkest shade. So let's do the lightest one first. I'm going to copy this one, place it in here, and then once I open my color picker here, to make a very light shade, instead of just playing around with the color picker and kind of trying to guess what's going to look good, one thing I could do is play with the lightness, so I can really bring it up to get this very, very light shade. And if, let's say, it looked like too pale to me, I can increase the saturation by a little bit. So it's probably very subtle difference, but it's just a quick way to start playing around with your scales. So this could be our light one. Actually, maybe I'll make it even lighter. So super light. I'll call this one 100. And then this very last one we want to make very dark. And for this one we will decrease the lightness. So you see it's super dark. And then after we have our lightest and our darkest, we're going to start with this middle ones here. So for this one, let's say we want it somewhere maybe around 45, 75. So it is kind of in the middle between the two. Maybe 80. And then this one we'll do like 88 or 90. And then this one we could do around 65, 70. So they're kind of different, and obviously you can take a much longer time playing around with these shades to get the exact ones that you want. Okay, and now we're going to do our darker colors. So let's start with this one, and so this one was around 20 and this one is 62, so maybe we'll do something in between, like 40. And this one could be 35. And this one could be around 55. So this look a little bit too similar to me. So maybe this one I'll bring down to 30. And so here are the shades for your purple, your primary color. Before we move on to our grays, one thing is, why did we start in the middle for our primary, for our purple color? So the reason for that is that we'll most likely want to use this color for our primary button or in other places throughout the app. When it comes to grays though, it's that middle grayish color isn't going to matter much to us. What matters is having a super light color for our backgrounds and then a very dark color for text. So we're going to start on the edges instead of starting in the middle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy our template, ungroup it, and then we can begin with our lightest gray color, which we can put it at 95, and our darkest, maybe we want like 20 or 100, and we don't want to make it like pure black because otherwise it's going to be harsher on our eyes and we don't want that. So that's why we're keeping it like more gray, less black. And then from here we could just start going through each of this and increasing the lightness. And obviously you don't have to do like 10, 20, 30, 40. You can play around to see which ones you like more. One thing about this current grayscale is that these grays are very basic, and you can actually use your grays to create either like a warmer feeling or a cooler feeling. And to do that, we're just going to play a little bit with hue and saturation to achieve that effect. So to demonstrate what I mean by that is I'm going to take this current grayscale and I'm going to make a copy. And let's say this one we want to have a little bit cooler, like more bluish feeling to them. So how you can achieve that is by playing with hue and saturation. So what we're going to do for the cooler undertone is increase the hue to around 200 and then increase the saturation to maybe 10. And we're going to go through every color and we're going to do that for all of them. Okay, so I went through all of this and increased the hue to 200 and increased the saturation for some of them to about 12 or 10 and some more like 5 just so they don't look too blue. So as you can see from here, this still look gray, but they have a little bit different, cooler undertone to them. The same principle would apply if you wanted to create a warmer undertone. So instead of increasing hue to around 200, you're going to increase it to just 40. So to demonstrate, I just copied over our initial grays here, and I'm going to do the same thing by going through every color, increasing the hue to 40, and saturation to anywhere between like 5 and 12. If you compare these three scales, you can obviously tell the difference. They all are gray, but this one has a cooler feeling to it, and this one has a warmer feeling to it. For the color system that I'm making here, I think I will stick with the cooler undertone, so I'm just going to keep that one. But obviously it's up to you. You can still use the basic grays if that's the one that you prefer. But the good thing to remember is that you do always have the options of playing around with your grays. So at this point we have a scale for our purple, our primary color, and then we have a scale for our grays, but we haven't really made any color styles yet. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to select all of this, and I'll begin by renaming them. And a quick shortcut to rename them is I'm just going to do, first I selected all the layers, and then I did Command R, and I want to rename them to a value, and the value is going to be from 100 to 900. So now if you can see it, this one is renamed to 100, this one is 200, and then all the way down is to 900. And now the same thing for the grays. I'm going to select all of them, rename, and I'll rename them once again from 100 to 900. And then always after you rename, just confirm to make sure that that they are in the correct order. What I'm going to do now is select this purple shades here and go over to plugins, and the plugin I'm going to use is called Styler. It allows you to quickly generate all the styles, so you don't have to go each color one by one and create a style separately. And from here, what I can do is select all of these colors, and I'm going to put them inside a folder and just call it purple. So the reason I'm putting them into folders and not just calling it like purple 100, purple 900, is because once you start having more colors, you really don't want to have just like a lot of styles here. It just gets very messy very quick. And personally, I like organizing things by folders. Another thing, after you create your styles, sometimes like there are mismatches, like you can see it's a little bit out of order. So I just like having the lighter shades on the top and the darker ones on the bottom. And this way, when you go and use the styles, let's say I create a shape and I want to use a color, it's already nicely grouped and it goes from the lightest to darkest shade. Another thing that's good to do as you go and create your color styles is to test them, either with components that you think you'll be using or with text, especially to check for contrast. So let's say I want to test this color because I know I'll be using it as a text color. What I'm going to do is, let's say, write hello, and then I will apply that dark purple color. And maybe I want it to be a button that has this very light background color as the background. From here, I'm going to go and get my contrast plugin, which is this one. Again, if you just search for it, it's going to come up. And what I'm going to do, I will just select that layer, and I can check to confirm that it passes all the contrast. Now that we have our purple color shades as color styles, we're going to do the same thing with our grays. So I'm going to select all of this and then run the Styler plugin to generate styles. And now I have them here over on the right. And once again, I'm going to select all of these ones, create a new folder, and call them gray. You can now repeat the same process for creating the rest of our colors. And I'm going to start with the orange one. So with the orange ones, we are going to start in the middle because, again, that color may matter to us since we may want to use it as a button color, for instance. So I'm going to start in the center and just find an orange color that I like. And then we're going to go on the edges and maybe make this one super light. And this one could be very dark. Now we're going to create one that's roughly in the middle. Be 40, and this one could be 30. This one could be 48. And now we can do the lighter ones. So this one could be, say, 80. This one could be 65. Again, definitely feel free to take more time and play and find the right shades that you want. I'm now going to repeat the same process as we did with purples and grays, and I'm going to first rename this to have the value. And then I'm going to run the Styler plugin, and I will generate our new styles. From here, I'm going to select all of these ones, create a new folder, and call it orange. We're now going to repeat the same thing for our reds, greens, and blues. So you can either watch this part or you can skip ahead. So let's do our reds first. I'm going to copy this group, and now I'm going to search for a red that I like. Let's put it at 60. And this one is going to be a very dark one, maybe 20. And this one is going to be very light, maybe 95. Then we'll do the light ones first. This one will be around 75. This one could be maybe 70. Let's make this one 80. and this one could be 85. And then for this one, so we'll make 45, 30, and this one could be 55. From here, I will once again select all of these ones, rename, and run the styler plugin. And put them in the folder. Next one, we'll do our green scale. So we'll start with the middle color as well, and pick a green. Then we'll do our light ones. And our dark ones. So these two look a little too bright to me, so maybe I'll just lower the saturation just a little bit. Again, you can take more time and make them much nicer than what I have here. But let's turn them into styles. And now we have our greens. Last one are blues. And now let's put them into styles. And put them into folder. So these were all the colors. Obviously you can have more. This is just more like a starter pack. Now looking at the visual of all of our colors, so it was a good playground to explore what colors we want to have, but we can't really leave our style guide like this. It's not very like telling, and somebody who is looking at this, it just doesn't really have like a good clean representation to it. So fortunately what we can do is that there are some plugins out there that can once again help us to have a nicer color style guide representation, and it all just happens with kind of one click, so you don't really have to do any work for that. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to go to plugin, and I'm going to search for a plugin called Color Style Guide, and I'm going to run that plugin. And as you can see, it created this new page here called Colors. You can obviously rename it, but here it has all of our colors very nicely represented. You have a group for each, like blue, purple, gray. Then you have their values, you have the hex, RGB, and HSL. So that's about it for color styles. One important thing to note is that if you're working at a startup and you don't really have much time to go and like create your own colors, like you really don't have to do that. There are tons of Figma libraries out there that already have colors pre-built in them and which you can just use. So one such library is Untitled UI, and like they have like so many grays, so many greens. You can just pick whichever palette you want. And another thing to check is always confirm with your developers whether they're already using some sort of component library, because many of those component libraries also already have colors built in, and maybe instead of handing off something to developers, you can just use whichever colors they already have, assuming that everyone does like those colors. So for example, Chakra UI, they already have pre-built colors, and both Chakra and Untitled UI, they kind of use the same system of simple color name plus value, and the higher value is the darker the color is, the lower the value is, the lighter the color is. That's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to link this demo Figma file in the description, as well as any other plugins or articles, books that I've mentioned here. Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.